Senator Walker. Chairman, do you mind opening us up in prayer?
Yes, glad to do it. Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love and grace and sending your Son for redemption of our sins. Please lead, guide, and direct us through this meeting so that our actions will be pleasing to you. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Thanks, Senator Walker. Appreciate that. We have 5 bills today. We're obviously getting started late. Rules ran on, and we are we're not going to hear testimony. What we did, we announced that ahead of time, and we're going to have people we've already had. We asked to have it in writing and/or is in your folder, and we'll go from there. First up is Chairman Newton, and we're on LC 339099S, House Bill 1533. Floor is yours.
I bring before you a bill today to make an effort to see if we can give some assistance to many people who've been incredibly challenged over the last 2 years of COVID, and now currently with staffing shortages and short staffing, and that would be our nurses, doctors, pharmacists, and other healthcare workers, in an effort to try to find a program that would be available for what we would call early intervention, or preventive care would be an explanation, except it's in mental health. What House Bill 1533 does is it establishes a program that can address career fatigue for nurses, physicians, and other caregivers. A lot of this has been challenged, as I said, during COVID, workforce challenges. What 1533 would establish a confidential a confidential setting where members of those healthcare professions could seek care from an organization that would allow them to deal with a lot of the career fatigue. I know we've had lots of nurses leave the field. We've had physicians that have left the field and other caregivers. What we would like to do is to see if we can improve on that. Now, this is not to say that there's no capabilities available for healthcare workers like many other workers. There are board courses or board related systems for the nursing board and the medical board and pharmacy board, and there are employer-sponsored programs for a lot of these, especially the larger employers. Some of the smaller employers, many of the smaller employers don't have access to the kind of resources, say, a large corporation might have. What this does is give a milder version, if you will, an earlier intervention version through something. In Virginia, there's a similar program called Safe Haven, and it is separate from a board-ordered or employer-sponsored plan that obviously many are somewhat reluctant to use. Even though there's guaranteed confidentiality, there's always a little bit of a question, and more physicians like me are employed by corporations. And obviously people in nursing and in medicine would like to know that their information is confidential. Now, obviously that's the key to this bill, because otherwise we wouldn't have needed a state law to establish it. It could have just been established, but we want people to feel free to share their challenges, whether they're financial, whether they're marital or family related, whether it's illness themselves. And there's a key point is confidentiality, as long as it doesn't cause any potential harm to a patient. That's an exclusion from the confidentiality, and in the same way psychiatrists and others would have. We would love for this to be an effort to offer early intervention for healthcare workers before they decide to leave a field, before they get depressed that they're not effective, before they have further family or other turmoil or job turmoil. And I'd appreciate it if you'd pass this bill along. We'd love to get this program started and help working together to start addressing some of these significant career challenges, wellness challenges, even mental health challenges that exist in the healthcare field right now. Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from the committee? Number 9.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Newton. And I really understand the need for this approach, and it's interesting to know and good to know that the Virginia has already brought something like this on board. The language of the bill is broad enough that it describes a type of program that Safe Haven being an example, but it's not limited to Safe Haven. In the language of the bill is, I mean, there could be another entity that offered the same sort of. Maybe illuminate us about that.
the program that we are trying to emulate that has had some success, it's always good to let other people work the kinks out sometimes, is a program that's described in lines 20 through 27, as you say. But certainly we would not be limited in the future. We could certainly add other programs that would address this same confidentiality. This particular bill addresses one particular model that we know works, and that there's the support behind to get started quickly. And so that's why the effort with the particular language right here. You know, obviously, anytime you're talking about confidentiality or protected information, the trial lawyers might be on one side, and healthcare might be somewhere in the middle. People can be all over the place on it. Obviously, we wanted to make sure we protected patients and any others. Frankly, a threat to myself or an individual caregiver would be exempt from this as well. This is just the program that has been shown to work, that we were ready to get started with and try to meet that fine line of what's the appropriate nature of confidentiality when you're dealing with a caregiver. I think right now I think it's one that we could get started with.
Any other questions or concerns?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure. 4.
4, yes, sir. So the point is to give them a place where they can express their issues and deal with their issues and not be subject to reporting to the Composite Medical Board or some entity such as that.
Correct, or to be subpoenaed in a once again, as long as no patient's at risk, but they don't want someone, if someone's going to participate in a mental health improvement program, you want them to feel confident that their challenges are expressed in a confidential setting, but only to the limited extent that it's to help the individual and not a threat to anyone else.
And that's the only part shielded from disclosure is what they reveal in these consultations.
Correct.
Not anything they do in the workplace or outside of the setting that you're describing.
It wouldn't, and believe me, we worked on this language carefully with the trial lawyers to make sure it's exclusively in the program, the information shared in this program, and it doesn't in any way give privilege or negate the ability to get factual information about what other medical outcomes might have been in their employment.
One other question, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman. On line 46, I've not seen the term before, hearing in camera, but I assume that's also to somehow protect their privacy, or what is a hearing in camera? Am I looking at the right?
Is it? I would have to get an attorney to help me. I apologize.
Must have.
Yeah, it's a closed hearing where you're looking at it, together, but it's not any others.
So just for the, since our legal counsel is not on mic, so reports that it is a closed hearing where you're on video and not otherwise. Is that accurate?
Not on video. You're in a room together. I mean, I guess there could be someone participating via video, but you're looking at it. You're not taking it with you and reviewing it. You're looking at it in a closed and
In real time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, well, no wonder I don't understand it.
Sorry.
It is in Latin. I got you.
I did
Okay.
have legal assistance.
All right, good. Latin is good as long as we understand what it is. All right, so I think we do. Any further questions?
I don't have a question, but I got this thought in my head, and I need to get it out when you were mentioning who could use these services. And I know this is a very serious area to be in. I was just wondering if we can include legislators for some mental health
Okay,
services.
that's right. Yeah.
Early intervention is great in many fields.
I'm glad. I'm glad we got that out to the public. That was good. Okay, so no, I mean I think that's a good point. I mean this is being proactive rather than waiting to a problem to happen and where others have to intervene. It is. I recognize that I may have an issue. I would like to address it without having the before you're going to have a problem with others or with patient or substance abuse or anything like that. So this is being proactive rather than
I was a little jealous
sort of
when I heard
retroactive.
the bar associations, I believe they have 6 a year that are available if you want them, I think for free. I'm not sure how that works. I don't know if anybody would want to admit to that, but at the same time, I think a lot of us need to admit that there are ups and downs in any professional career, nursing, whatever, legal fees, legal careers. I think having access to early intervention will be helpful, especially in times when we've been so stressed with staffing and workflow and everything.
All right, now we do have 4 more bills. This is an important bill. I don't want to get me wrong, but what else we got?
Simply, the lines 22 through 27 is the real critical. It describes that the program would be created and established or contracted for by a statewide association. So
Yes, ma'am.
that's level of specificity, and primarily represents healthcare professionals licensed. So, but that's the paragraph that hones in on having this entity on the ground in Georgia.
All right.
through
And how
its
narrow it is.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate that. I'm ready for a motion. Looks like we got a motion and a second. Who wants to do the motion?
You want to do
All right.
Do pass LC 339099S, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion to do pass and second. Senator Kirkpatrick, any further discussion? No further discussion, so we're voting on LC 339099S. All those in favor, raise your hand. Looks like we're raising our hands, so, oops, I can't vote, so, all righty, okay. Unanimous, thank you. So the chairman does not vote except for break ties. All right, so thank you, Representative Newton. Why don't you just step back, hopefully very briefly. Who's carrying the bill? Did we get to that?
Pick a number.
Anybody volunteering?
Is there a volunteer? Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
all right. Senator Huffstetler has volunteered. Thank you, Senator Huffstetler. All righty, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Appreciate that. Next, we have House Bill 1042, Representative Jaspers. We are LC 500304. No substitute. All right, it's come straight to us. It's a perfect bill.
Oh, well, thank you. Hey,
All righty.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just want to tell the committee thank you for all the work you've done on 1013 over the last week. I mean, you deserve great commendation.
Last 2 weeks, but
2
who's
weeks.
counting?
Well, I mean, I know. Well, I've heard
Who's counting? That's right.
Chairman, I've heard the meetings downstairs in the last week. So, but I just wanted to say that for sure. House Bill 1042 authorizes the One Georgia Authority to create a grant of up to $200,000 for a primary care medical facility in a high-need area. I don't have to tell this committee, and you looked at the maps that you've been presented over the years of the absence of primary care in rural Georgia. I'm the vice co-chairman of the Rural Development Council. It's something we see as we go all across Georgia as a need. And we hope that this will improve primary care in rural Georgia. The placement of these physicians' offices will be determined by review of the primary care shortage region by Department of Community Health. It must have the commitment of the Development Authority in these rural areas for it to be successful. They've got to have skin in the game. They make the application, and I'm sure they'll have their own money into it. And it's got to be consistent with local health care objectives, readiness, are they ready to do it, and their feasibility. What we envisioned was that a development authority purchasing a building, renovating it, and then recruiting a primary care physician or one of the things that are listed in the bill. And then after 10 years, they can turn it over to them because they made an investment in the community and a great long investment in improved health care there. Of course, this grant would need the final approval of the governor and the Department of Community Health. And it's just another tool in the toolbox as we go around Georgia looking at different ideas to help improve care. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Jaspers. Appreciate that. Any questions, Senator Kirkpatrick, on one?
My question is, just to be sure, we have these federally qualified health centers around the state, and I would hope that, is it safe to assume that the authorities, local authorities would be in communication with those folks or making sure they're not duplicating
Yes, ma'am.
services?
Just talked a moment. I would think they would. They're small communities. If they're fortunate enough to have a FQAC in their community, they're going to know about it and be very thankful. I have one in mind, and it's a great asset.
Anybody else? No other questions I see or discussion, so I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
Chairman, I move to pass.
All right, we have a motion from
LC 500304.
Senator Walker and a second from Senator Burke. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor, raise your hand. Looks unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Representative
Chairman.
Jaspers. Have you talked to anybody about carrying your bill?
Yes, sir. Dr. Burke.
Dr. Burke at rural Georgia.
Load them up, baby. Is that
Okay.
right?
All righty.
Thank
All
you,
right.
committee.
Thank you. We're at Representative Hawkins now. It's got two bills, 1304 LC 540060S. And floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. House Bill 1304 is the Georgia Caregivers Act. I think we're all aware that most often hospitals, upon dismissal, will advise patients or their caregivers of post-op instructions. But this bill puts it in code and clarifies exactly what that means. It's been brought to us and the attention, a number of us over the years, that patients are being dismissed. Typically, it's the wife getting the husband home, and she can't take care of him because of trying to move him. Sometimes it's a husband having problems giving the patient medication, injections, whatever it may be. So this bill speaks to the process, and at that time, the caregiver can make the decision. Once they totally and completely understand what post-op care is, they may make the decision that, gee, I can't do this. And at that time, the patient is then either transferred to another hospital or a post-acute care facility, and then transferred home. The hospitals have been interested in this bill, and I would say they're neutral, but they are interested in the aspect that hopefully it'll reduce some readmissions to the hospital. Right now, that is a concern. We know that Medicare does not pay for that readmission under certain circumstances. So primarily, that's what the bill is. I mean, it mentions code in a couple sections. On the third page, Chapter 32, is the Advanced Directive Code, and it no way affects that. And Code 31's consent on surgery, surgical treatment, in no way does it affect that. So that's the bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any questions from the committee? Looks like we have no questions, and looks like we have a motion from Senator Kirkpatrick of due pass, LC 540060S, and a due pass. I think I heard from Senator Orrock. And no further discussion. All those in favor, raise your hand. Looks unanimous again. Okay. All right. Mr. Senator Hawkins.
And Senator Burke's going to carry that.
Oh, Senator Burke is, all righty. Okay. Loading him up.
I know, he's got a wheelbarrow full.
Okay. HP 1484 is yours also.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Yes, 33909-6S.
Right. This bill addresses PANS and PANDA. I think this committee, like our House committee, has been hearing testimony on this for the last 4 to 5 years. We actually had a study committee on the House side, 2019, and that was a very interesting study committee. We actually had specialist, a testimony from like Dr. Sweeto, MD, National Institute of Mental Health. In this condition, and I'll keep this short because I believe this committee is very aware of this, you know, these children are severely suffering. The treatment has been in some dispute in years past, but now they pretty much focused on a strep bacteria origin that's causing this. You know, this I've worked with DCH on this bill, Ryan Loke. We originally had it in Medicaid. There's a problem with Medicaid in that anytime that calls for a study, they may take 2 to 3 to 4 years before that comes back from CMS. This study, as you notice on the last page, line 39, is to end in 2027. It involves 100 patients within DCH with state health benefit for diagnosis and treatment. And I think it's an obvious step that we need to take and really long overdue. And I'll stop there for any questions.
Okay. Any questions, thoughts on Senator Allwright?
Well, thank you very much for bringing this, and you've accurately described the past history that we've started to engage with this, and really, I think it's been a real education, an eye-opener for those of us who didn't have someone that was already, plagued with this condition.
Right.
It's really time for us to take this step, and it sounds like it's measured and thoughtful, and I really feel deep appreciation of
Thank you, ma'am.
Chairman Hawkins for you carrying this.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? No further questions. Entertain a motion. Do pass. Senator Allwright, 1484, 33909-6S. Have a second. Senator Halpern. And any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Senator Butler, are you going to vote against it? She's for it too. All righty, unanimous. Okay. All right. All right. And had you talked to somebody about carrying it?
I did, dear heart, Senator Kirkpatrick.
All right. Okay. Senator Kirkpatrick. Panda.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Tell you what, we've done 250. We might have everybody back on time. So Senator Newton is back up, and I think we do have a substitute on this one. This is LC 339144S. Let's make sure everybody's got it.
Yeah.
Sure. Get you on.
Senator Halpern, did you have it?
All right, so we had the analysis and we had the bill, and Representative Newton. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Chairman of the committee. House Bill 697 started about electronic communication among electronic medical records, trying to get them to talk better from last year. But we've actually found a much better use for it, I think, now, which is a bill that came out. It was heard in my committee, Access Committee, Committee on Access to Quality Health Care. This bill actually deals with access to health care in rural areas, something we're all trying to find an effort to work on. There's been very little willingness to invest significant sums of money or take a certain amount of risk to expand a hospital in any of our rural counties, especially our counties that are eligible for the rural hospital tax credit. Those are ones who've gone through a certain rigorous financial evaluation, their leadership evaluation, and they've been deemed to be eligible to receive the rural hospital tax credit that we have and that we've expanded, and I expect us to expand further as an effort to support our rural hospitals. House Bill 697 is really specifically written at this point just because some counties aren't sure they want that much freedom all at once. It's specifically written to address a situation largely in Butts County. It has some pretty particular dates. There's some development that's going on. There's individuals and corporations that are willing to invest significant sums of money in changing what is now Sylvan Grove, which is about a 25-bed hospital that, let's just say it's a dated structure with limited abilities to even get a census of 25, just because like many people we found across Georgia, most people would prefer to go or take their family member to something called a center of excellence in something, whether it's abdominal surgery or sepsis or maternity or orthopedic surgery, all the different things that people might want to go to a center of excellence. That's just hard to do at 25 beds, and therefore a lot of the people don't choose to go to the hospital in their smaller community. They choose to go to a larger one, either in the Atlanta area or Macon area, some of our larger cities. Some of our rural hospitals are that quality. So what this bill does, it allows a potential hospital to move, to relocate. A hospital authority-owned, currently 25-bed hospital could relocate within that county, which they're already able to do under the Certificate of Need rules that are now currently present. But currently, the Certificate of Need would require them to only go up to 35 beds, and then wait around and see if a year or two, and then reapply for CON again to go to 45, reapply again a year later to go to 55, et cetera, if they thought they needed 100 or 115, 120 beds. That would have to be the process. As you can imagine, that's not an efficient way to build a hospital. It's also very difficult just going to 35 beds to offer that same level of service that a lot of our constituents, as well as our family members and ourselves, would like a hospital to offer. This just allows, in a particular area, for this hospital authority to move its hospital within the county limits and to expand it at the same time without spending the approximately 2 years, and estimates are $500,000 or $600,000 on legal fees, not to mention the uncertainty that comes with appeals and everything else that are dealt with. We passed a bill actually in my committee that actually sunsetted all of Certificate of Need in 2025 on the same day this bill was heard. There is a no, it's not going anywhere, and you're never going to see it over here. Not this year, and nothing carries over. So, but it was really an effort to look at Certificate of Need and see, are there some areas where we need to be maybe a little less adamant about the answers no, what was the question, which is what at least some of my committee members seem to feel some of the view on Certificate of Need, I would say amendments would be, which I consider this kind of an amending of the Certificate of Need statute. This does describe a hospital that that currently exists that would be moving, and that's the lines there on, say, 16 through 34. It kind of specifically describes a hospital. There was talk about expanding this to all 54 counties where rural hospital tax credit is available, which are hospitals that are really our 54 most at need or at risk hospitals, at risk for closing or going out of business. But rather than look for a bill that was that broad that tried to look at 54 different situations, it was like, well, let's see if we can narrow it down, and that's the Senate sub that we're looking at today, to try to narrow it down to one particular area where there are individuals and entities willing to invest significant amounts in what is a rural county in I would argue, a fairly state-of-the-art facility, which we're not seeing a lot of them built in any of those communities. Really exactly the kind of activity we'd like to see, I believe, in a lot of rural Georgia, that they're willing to take some risks without involving county money or bonds and things like that. And so that's the gist of the bill. It is a very tightly controlled bill. It doesn't apply, like I say, it's purposefully narrowed to apply in a particular area, and I don't want that to imply favoritism. It's just to have 53 other counties that are not sure they want them or their neighbors to have that much freedom. Rather than run into all that, it is fairly narrowly tailored for a situation where an entity is willing to begin improving a 25-bed hospital all the way up to a 100 to 150-bed hospital in the very short term. And so with that, I thought it was a very reasonable effort to very narrowly adjust CON and allow, in particular, our rural counties who may not have the $500,000 or $600,000 in legal fees that might be a blip on the screen for one of our North Atlanta hospitals. That's a significant amount of money to anyone. The delays are significant to everyone. It looked like an area where we could all come together and say, we're not opposed to reasonable relaxations in CON when they're narrowly tailored and especially when they're there to help our most rural, most at-risk county hospitals. So I'd appreciate your support on it. Certainly Representative Crow is a representative from that area, and he's fought hard for this on our in our committee and on our side, and we just ran out of time, as everyone knows happens.
Any questions from the committee? Got hands up. Dr. Al?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Newton, for presenting this bill and for explaining it, because it's actually significantly different from the bill I studied before the committee, the one about the electronic information.
I'm sorry, are you looking at the right LC number?
Yeah, no, the substitute. I'm talking about the substitute.
Oh,
So-
right. It is a.
Yeah.
It is a.
Totally different.
Yeah, it's a.
Yeah. So the
Late
question is,
season.
obviously, we've talked about this at some length in terms of the rural healthcare shortage and rural hospitals closing. With respect to CON and this issue more broadly, how do the hospital associations feel about exemptions to CON, broadly speaking?
My understanding is it's a little bit like I think the answer is no. What's the particular question? The hospitals don't really want to discuss certificate of need. And so that's been the, now they are willing, now that we have a bill that did pass committee, that another bill, to have some discussions. And I think there might be some leeway and understanding that individual circumstances are worth taking on an individual variance. In the same way every zoning law has variances at times for good reasons, this is almost really more like a variance to the certificate of need, in particular for a rural hospital
Have you
that
gotten
really
input
isn't going to
on
get
that?
improved any other way.
Has there been any input on this substitute bill from the hospital association, or is there anyone to testify about?
I think in
issue?
committee there were concerns about it from the hospital associations.
What happened with, sorry, as a follow-up, what happened with this bill in your committee?
It's still in the committee. It's sitting
Still?
there.
Okay.
Chairman Hofstadter? Who's at 11?
That's number 10.
Sorry.
Yeah. This was left out of my packet in error, so I'm still trying to play catch-up here. And I feel like I don't know the backstory, so I'm a little bit lost on this bill. What hospitals are in Butts County right now?
I think just Sylvan Grove is only, my understanding, is 25-bed. I wouldn't say dated facility is probably the nicest term.
That's in operation right now?
Yes, sir.
Is that the facility you're talking about?
I believe the census is less than 10 a day. I mean, it's single-digit kind of average daily census. That would be the hospital authority that owns that would be moving and moving that certificate of need or hospital to this new area that's being developed.
So the hospital authority there wants this to happen?
That's my understanding,
Lost
yes.
on it, okay. So they're in a data.
Now, they don't want to fund it, so this is a unique facility, a unique situation to where.
And is this facility's open right now?
Oh, no.
No, it's closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. The 25-bed is open now.
It is open.
The small hospital is open, yes, sir.
And so I'm still lost. Is that the facility you're talking about moving?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we'll get some more questions and
All right.
I can figure this out.
Senator Kirkpatrick?
Yeah, I'm a little lost too, because you said it's a 25-bed hospital, and you said that it could already be relocated under current CON law. Is that accurate?
Only a 25-bed, my understanding is up to 10 beds more. So it could.
So 35 beds?
Right.
Okay, so they could already move.
Well, they could move and build a hospital that might still not meet the demands of current population's healthcare desires.
Any other questions? All right, Senator Dolezal, what's 12?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Newton, for being here. If I can, I have some of the same questions I think that Chairman Hofstadter had. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. The Sylvan Grove Hospital, which I just looked up, looks like it's 60 years old or so.
Right, like a lot of our
He's
rural
nodding,
hospitals,
so,
correct.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You said it's about 25 beds. If you all moved you would have to go to 35 beds, 45 beds,
The max you
55
could go
beds.
to would be 35 with the move, which is currently allowed. And once again, the difficulty is, as I said, whether obstetrics, pediatrics, women's services.
This new hospital will
surgery.
still be operated by the same hospital facility, hospital authority that's operating the old one. Do you guys have any estimates? One thing I'm thinking about is the employment opportunity here. How many more people will be employed at the new hospital at 125 beds, call it, versus the 35?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. Well, I'm
apologize.
guessing
I know it'd be
4X or so would be.
It'd be significant, several hundred.
You mentioned as well, I
employees.
just want to clarify this, no public funds are being spent on this. This is all local, it sounds like local, private, or business investment.
Correct.
To construct
Correct.
the
No
entire
state funds,
facility.
no local funds, right?
And this,
Tax funds.
can you help me understand, lastly, this sounds like it's pretty narrowly carved out, so it would basically only apply to this particular situation, and your intent is to sunset this, I think I saw in 2 years?
Correct.
Is that accurate? Okay, thank you.
Right, those are the reasons it was narrowly tailored, so that there was not it wouldn't have to be an effort to look at, like I say, 53 other counties that have a small, also 60-year-old hospital, potentially that would have to evaluate their own and their neighbors' situations.
Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Newton, it's my understanding, I'm questioning the process. It's my understanding that 697 was tabled in
Well,
your
this
committee?
was the original 697, as Senator Al mentioned, was a different bill. But you're right. This language
But
was
you have
originally
a
tabled.
sub
Yes,
to
ma'am.
that 697. It had the same number. You have a sub to the original.
Yes, ma'am. This
697.
language or something very similar to it was tabled.
Tabled.
Yes, ma'am.
But you told us it was just in the committee.
Whatever.
You didn't say it was tabled,
Oh, I'm sorry. It's sitting in the committee, but yeah, I guess it's on the table in the committee.
but you have a sub to that same number. So I'm questioning the process.
What was the original number?
So this bill, 697, has been substituted with the House bill,
The original
1402.
language was House Bill 1403.
1403.
It's now being placed in House Bill 697. So House Bill 1403 is the one that's still in the committee on the table. This was a defunct bill from last year, a bill number from last year. No,
Whatever. All right, Senator Halpern.
I would like to move to table.
The
697 is on the table.
we're going to vote on this.
all
All right, so we're running out of time, and we're going to call the question.
697 passed the House last year and has been sitting in Health Committee here, House Bill 697. That bill, it's a different language than this. That language is, that bill is over here in this committee. The language that we're seeing today is on the table in a House committee. It's being placed on a bill that's already crossed over from the House, that's been sitting in Health Committee here.
Okay. All right. So parliamentary inquiry here. So while you were still talking, I recognized Senator Halpern over here, and she made a motion to table. So I recognize that, and so do I have a second on that? All right, motion to table is seconded. All those in favor of tabling, let's make sure we're doing 697. This is a substitute, LC 339144S. Motion to table. All those in favor of tabling? 6. All those against tabling? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, let's see. Let's do the. So motion to table was. I'm sorry, motion to not table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So so the motion is tabled 6-5. Correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Motion's tabled 6-5.
Nope.
No, I can vote to break the tie. I don't think I can vote. Oh, I can vote to. I can vote to tie. All right, so I will vote to tie. So that's a 6-6. So the motion fails. I apologize. Apologize. Yes.
I make a motion to do pass.
All right, got a motion to do pass. We're all clear. Motion do pass. We have a second on that. Am I?
There's a second here, Mr. Chairman.
We got a second. Betsy says it. Another lawyer, Jocelyn, says it. All right, we're all clear on that? To make a tie, apparently I can do it.
Yeah, you can make them break it down.
All right, so here we are. Okay, let me just make sure we're clear. We got a motion, do pass, and we have a second. All right, so further discussion.
I would say, in number 10 here, I voted to not table because I wanted to hear more about it, but I don't feel comfortable voting for it right now because I just don't understand it. Is my problem.
I understand that. That's fine. And you had a discussion.
Well, I wanted to ask some questions also. I didn't want to,
I understand. Listen, you know, if you have further questions, you don't feel comfortable voting for it, that's fine. You know, that's that's the posture you're in. I mean, that's your.
can we ask more questions?
We can, under discussion, we'll give a little bit of limited questions if you don't mind. So where were we first? Who was first? Be brief.
So this is really narrowly tailored, I get that.
Yes, sir.
You said in your testimony it applies, in your opinion, to Butts County.
That's
situation in Butts
correct.
County.
Yes, sir.
The hospital, the Sylvan Manor.
Sylvan Grove.
Sylvan Grove. I'm assuming that's owned by the Butts County Hospital Authority. Is that
Correct.
And we have, is it unanimous with the Butts County Hospital Authority that they want this bill?
You know, I wasn't allowing any more testimony here.
Our understanding is that they're fully supportive of the effort to expand the hospital, especially if it's not at their direct expense.
One last question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Who's actually running the hospital now?
I believe Wellstar has a contract to run the 25-bed hospital now.
So
Okay.
I got one follow-up.
All right. Okay.
Generous.
So will Wellstar be running the new hospital?
They certainly would have first opportunity to look at it. My understanding is obviously the hospital authority may want to open that up in whatever way they would, but certainly if they have a contractual agreement that they need to stick with, then my understanding is they would continue to obviously honor their contract, even if it was running a new hospital, if Wellstar was willing.
So they may have two hospitals then.
No, this is relocating a hospital on line 13, so it's relocating the hospital. The facility, the other facility will still be there, and the plan is potentially to make it an outpatient mental health potential facility, but this would be relocation of the hospital itself, and they would no longer run a full hospital or even a 25-bed hospital at the current location. Thank you.
Senator, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The unreadiness that I would have is that we haven't had any testimony from any other stakeholders on this bill.
Your point is taken.
And the
We
final
appreciate
thing
it.
was that on paragraph B, 35 through 39, they also want a special carve-out to say that the hospital still is going to be deemed to meet the requirements as long as it's some kind of special advantage to this newly created hospital that's going to still be called, even if after its commenced operation, the hospital will be deemed to continue to meet the requirements of this paragraph as long as it continues to operate. So we're doing some sweeping things here without testimony from any of the stakeholders, and I think caution should prevail.
It's.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say that for myself, I live in a county where I have easy access to a state-of-the-art hospital. Where we've given birth to children, we've gone to emergency care services, et cetera. I don't live in Butts County. I think I've been to Butts County one time in my life, but if my choice was to have a 60-year-old 35-bed facility or the option to have private investment build a state-of-the-art new 100 to 150-bed facility, I don't believe that I want to be the person to go on the record as getting in the way of providing that care for the people in that community. So I just want to get that on the record.
Thank you.
In the course of, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Course of discussion, I just want to say I cannot believe we would oppose a rural county with less than 30,000 people, that's an hour and a half from Atlanta, having access to a 125-bed hospital that they don't have to pay for. No taxpayer, state money or local money. All the debate we hear about a lack of rural health care and hospitals closing, and here we're putting an impediment to exactly what we're trying to pass all these other bills to address. And so I'm fully supportive to allow these people to have local health care instead of having to drive an hour and a half to Atlanta to be treated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for being recognized. I just believe that in the healthcare arena and the hospital arena, there are stakeholders that should be allowed to testify today if we're going to take action on this bill, because we have not heard from them. We have not heard from the operator of the current hospital. Thank you.
And I do believe that if Wellstar was able to testify today, they would tell you that they are opposed to this.
Thank you, Senator Butler. I appreciate your thoughts. I think we're in the discussion forum. We had a motion, we had a second. I think we've exhausted the discussion unless there's any more discussion. So that puts us in the posture of a vote. So let's raise our hands. All those in favor of this bill, it is House Bill 697 that's been substituted. It is LC 339144S. And posture is raise your hand if you're for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that was 6-4. All those against it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 to 5. Is that right? 6 to 5. It passes.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Chairman.
Who's carrying that for you?
Senator Dolezal, would you be willing to carry this?
Senator Dolezal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank y'all, committee.
All right, meeting adjourned, and meeting tomorrow is canceled.